Okay guys, huge honor for me. Okay, but seriously now, this is part 2 of a previous video, link in the description down below. And today we're gonna go through some self-defense maneuvers. And Dewet here is going to explain everything in excruciating detail. We played a bit with this, rehearsing it beforehand. I learned something new, I learned something interesting, and I think it will be beneficial for you guys. All right.
Okay, so Kala basically is another Kala is another toolkit that you can use. It primarily focuses on arm control, and why that's important is you're trying to control your opponent's weapon. It's going to be a pistol, it's going to be a knife, it can be a fist or an elbow as well, it works for that as well. But where it truly comes to shine is when your opponent is armed. So it works for hostage situations and then for law enforcement as well. And it's all been designed around defending against typical weapons like small arms, AK-47s, 9mm, that kind of stuff. So here is a real pistol. It's been made safe.
That gun.
Check price.
Yeah, nothing there.
Made safe, so it's safe to use. So again, this can be used, these techniques can be used in a variety of different scenarios, but a stereotypical hostage or a robbery situation in South Africa will be him pointing that pistol at my head. Kala for self-defense or hostage will always start in a submissive way. You never give away that you're a fighter or that you can fight. You're always submissive, you're protecting your vital organs, and you're pleading for mercy. That's very different from law enforcement. This is in a hostage scenario. So you'd be pleading for your life.
What is that stance?
And you'd be submitting and saying, please, please take the money, it's in my right pocket. This technique can be used for knife disarm, pistol disarm. The moment your attacker starts focusing and you've made the call to defend or to attack, because you don't always want to attack. If you've made that call, it's very simple. All the techniques are more or less the same. That's the beauty of the system. You're going to say, please, please take the money, please. You step slightly out of the way, you close the gap, and you go for the arm lock. The weapon is pointed 45 degrees up. I know there's nobody behind me because I'm situationally aware. I know there's people there. The last thing in the world I want to do is move the weapon over towards them. So I'm going to keep it 45 degrees. I'm jamming the slide of the pistol. So this pistol, if he fires off, if his finger is in the well and he fires off a single shot, this weapon is now disabled. So I'm going to I lock the arm. It's very hard for him to pull back that arm. It's virtually impossible. I drive forward. Let's just come back. I drive forward and I lead for the groin. I do damage. I can headbutt. I can kick for the groin, driving forward, whatever. If he leaves his finger in there, I'm going to break his finger very simply by pushing the gun forward. There's no ways he can resist from that gun breaking loose. Once I break that loose, remove your finger, his finger is safe. Once I break that loose, I will typically give a teeth kick to the groin, touch, tap, rack. Touch, the reason why you're touching is you want to make sure the magazine is still inside the weapon, because if you're grappling for the weapon and you hit that magazine release, the magazine will drop out. That happens quite often. So you're just touching, tapping, racking to make sure you don't get a jam. And then of course, you're going to point your pistol and yeah, he will hopefully put his hands in there.
So, right, we were discussing a few weaknesses. Or not weaknesses, but next steps, rather, all right? It's actually a pretty solid, like, starting attack, but like, where he says, when he's got control of the arm, I'm pulling back, right? This would be a very untrained response. So you can expect that, because now, people go like, oh, but I'm not gonna react like that, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool, you're trained. So what? You kind of forget how white belts start, right? They don't know anything, and they just spaz. You can expect that with facing an untrained person in a life or death situation. and well, you know, they're going to spaz. So it's obviously they're going to use force to get control of the weapon. And we discussed it now, whereas maybe a trained guy will kind of reach around going for the back. But Dewet was like, he showed me one of the options. If I decide to engage, he's going to go for the throw.
So you can go for a throw. You can go for a stereotypical judo throw here and whatever. Still do damage there, or control the arm and do damage there. The thing is, I don't really, get up quickly, I don't really want to go to the ground myself. So
yeah, because other people involved.
Yeah, so you do have other attacks that can branch off from there. The important thing to remember here is you're not dealing, in the street 9 out of 10 times, you're not dealing with a brown belt or a black belt jiu-jitsu guy. So yeah. The Kala system, what makes it really effective is it's all about arm control. So whether I disarm the weapon here or where's my knife?
Isn't it in your this one? This knife.
Yeah. So this knife has been taped shut so it can't cut. But whether we're talking about the hot weapon or the cold weapon, it's more or less the same technique. If he was to go for the normal conventional stab, again, I would lock that arm. It makes it very hard for him to pull back this cold weapon. Very, very hard. Of course, I'm not just going to stand here and allow him to start wrestling and doing all kinds of things. The moment I go down, I immediately start with massive action and I keep driving, obviously, keep driving. So I'm not giving him that time to react and make positive moves. If he was to react in different ways, there are ways to defend against that. Okay, but the beauty of this system is the arm control. It's very different from other martial arts because, with the exception of maybe Filipino, because I'm not that interested in this arm or this leg. I have to, and I promise you, once you have a real knife against you, this thing is exceptionally dangerous.
I just want to point out something now that you mentioned it, because now you've got control of this arm. You're not worried about my other hand, because the thing is, if you guys know anything about boxing, when guys clinch, they put their head over the shoulder. This way I can't strike him. He's pushing this down. I'm hunching in order to punch him, right? So if I do punch him, like you can feel it, it's gonna suck, but it's not threatening.
Let me show you there the access to his groin I've got. I've got massive access there. So, and that's your first attack, is going for the groin.
I don't have access to his groin as much. Oh, so I would have to hunch to punch. He's got actually the whole advantage here. If I do manage to break free, I'm going to be off balance and he's going to throw me.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty cool.
So look, there are things that you can do. Now, if you come up against a black belt or a brown belt jiu-jitsu, you're going to have a much harder time. But, I mean, that is just not what you're dealing with in general on the street. You're not dealing with a guy that's put in 10,000 hours on the mat, okay?
You're dealing with the spazzy white belt.
Yeah, you're dealing with a guy that's very likely never rolled. That's no excuse. You should still cross-train. You should still do boxing. You should still do jiu-jitsu. It's better that you train for a brown belt than a white belt, but the guys you face in the street are just not on that level of rolling. Now, again, the key concepts here are controlling that weapon, and this has been very well thought through. The amount of motion he can generate, especially while I'm driving him forward and doing damage to his groin, is very, very limited. The way you hold this arm, let me just get closer. The way you hold this arm, it's very hard for him to slide this object out and cut the hand. And with Kala, everything has been designed around that. The disarms, whether you're in this kind of hostage situation, whether he's attacking from above, below, it all ends in exactly the same arm lock and control. And even this, I think, is quite well designed. They've designed it so you can hold it without the fingertips. You can just hold it like that with pressure and the way you turn your arm. And again, you're driving, you're doing that, driving, you're doing that. So the reason why they designed it like that is for when you do receive cuts to your finger, you lose control. So it's very well thought through from how the slide on the pistol is blocked so it can't rack, to the way the knife arm is controlled even without the use of some of your fingers. Yeah, it's just really well thought through, the system. Again, it's super basic. So, you know, there's a limit in how much you can learn in 100 hours on the mat, never mind 20 hours on the mat. I think the beauty of Kala is whether he's holding this weapon, whether he's holding this weapon, or whether he's holding an AK-47, it's designed to control that weapon, to do damage, to weaken, and then to submit. And the final step of submission is taking the person to the ground, blocking the arm, and doing the damage on the ground.
So with that being said, the next one's going to be more jiu-jitsu relevant. Alright, now we're in close guard. How we got here doesn't really matter, but Dewet's going to explain some concepts to us and things that we need to look out for. I'm going to try and react like I'm not a brown belt. I'm going to try. So forgive me if instinct takes place. We were playing around here, and the one thing is, I can tell you, I could see the guy, and when I went for it, he just drew his knife and I didn't see it. And I know he's got like 3 or 4 different knives on him. And it actually took me by surprise. And we're just gonna go through all that now. And once he made me aware of it and we started playing around with it, then it like literally changed on how I was focused, because I wasn't focused on just pinning him. I was focused on his belt line. I just want to mention that now. So when it comes to untrained guys and they don't see the other things, like it's going to catch them by surprise. But anyway, Dewet.
Yeah, so like you said, there's a bunch of ways how you can end up there. It stereotypically goes from on the feet striking or attempting a wrist to somebody spear tackling you, or there's multiple attackers, you lose your footing or whatever. You fall backwards either through your attacker's momentum or unstableness in the environment, which happens a lot.
We are not here on purpose.
No.
That's the main thing.
Now, for me again, if there's multiple attackers, I normally don't go closed. But let's say there's one attacker and I'm going into close guard because I'm very comfortable here. Here, normally it results in, let me just make sure it's safe. It's safe.
He's done that several times today.
Check it's safe. Yeah.
It's safe.
Safe. Okay, so we're going to be grappling for this firearm most probably. Okay, so what's going to happen is if he's untrained, he's either going with both hands or one hand. It doesn't matter for me much. If we're just in a fist fight, yeah, it matters. But I do have a cold weapon which I draw, which is a knife, a dagger on my left hand side. Okay, so I do always carry this for weapon retention. So it doesn't really matter. Now the second thing to note is we always carry our weapons in condition 3. So there's no round in the chamber. I first have to rack. I draw, rack, shoot in the same movement. So even if he was to draw this, he still has to rack the weapon. So I'm feeling super confident here. I'm not that disturbed right now in this position. What an untrained guy will do most likely is hit for your head. That's 9 out of 10 times. So I want to be blocking. Now if you know jiu-jitsu, you know from here when he does this, I've got a variety of attacks. I've also got Kimura. I can sit up here. I can go for Kimura. I can slide out. It's very useful. Or I can already break the arm. Or I can slide out and I can go for the wrist. I can force him. Oh, he's tapping. So
I've got bad shoulders.
So I've got the Kimura there readily available. I've got a number of other attacks. But the most important thing is I want to put pressure on this firearm sometimes when you have an external holster, you just put your hand underneath and you lift it up. And that forces the gun against your stomach, and it's almost impossible to pull it out. So you just lift up the holster. The guy can't pull it out. If you don't have that, all I do is I push down and I put pressure on it. Okay.
Guys, this is like just basic grip fighting. If I grip him like this, he's fighting for the gap, right? It's the same with the gun also. There's only one gap that the gun can get out of. He's blocking that gap. Very simple, actually.
Exactly, and I can break his posture down and pull him forward, right? And from here I can do a variety of moves. If he's a black belt, it's going to be harder, okay? But you're not fighting a black belt, I guarantee you that, or a brown belt.
Sorry, let's just move up a bit.
Okay, so close guard is the exact same thing as in jiu-jitsu. The only difference comes in you retaining your weapon. But when he strikes for the head, I'm blocking. I can even break his posture, control that arm there. From here, you can't see it, but just bear with me, don't move. From here, I've already pulled my dagger, okay? And I'm simply cutting him wherever I want. I've actually cut a guy before in this position, but I was nice, I went for the arms. And so I disabled his hand movement, and that was the end of it. But you can do, of course, more damage. But this is why you always carry a cold weapon with a hot weapon. But again, if I didn't have the cold weapon, I'm going to go for jiu-jitsu. I'm going to block here, I'm going to go for the kimura, or I'm going to break the posture, control the arm, and then go for a submission from there. Cool. Yeah, you could go for omniplata as well.
Yeah, I don't really like that as much, no-gi, because, well, one, it's actually easy to escape, but white belts, right? You'll catch them anyway. Yeah. But yeah, there's definitely a variety of things you can do there because you're giving the short arm. So, I mean, it's actually pretty crazy on how a weapon just changes the grip fight so tremendously. But like I've said it in previous videos. Alan and I actually talked about this as well. Like, if you're going to draw a gun, make sure you know how to wrestle for the gun. If you're going to learn to carry, learn how to wrestle for the gun. It's one of the most important things because at the end of the day, the firearm or the knife is going to be what's the gimmick? What do we call it in movies? The MacGuffin that will actually end the movie, right? So these weapons, those are the most important thing. Like the punches and stuff like that, that is the minor threat in comparison to this, because this will end your life. What's a bit of CTE compared to your life ending early?
That's the thing, as the defender, you've got to block the punches because one good punch can take you out of the game. But again, this is basic jiu-jitsu, it's basic MMA. You defend, break posture, control the arm. And again, because we're carrying condition 3, it means it has to be wrapped. So even if he does take that, now he's a brown belt, so he's going to do brown belt shit, which you're not going to see in the street. But once he has this on, he still has to rack that weapon. So as long as I prevent him from racking that weapon, he's in big trouble. So obviously, I mean, I've got a number of steps from here. I can sweep him over, and again, I'm going to control that weapon, right? Poof, I don't know if you can see that. But I'm going to sweep, I'm going to control the weapon.
Let's just do that again.
So this is, again, it's standard jiu-jitsu, you know. If he's drawing the weapon, he still hasn't racked it. Okay, he's got this arm attached to me at the moment. Okay, so what I can do is I can shrimp out and I can sweep over. He still hasn't racked that weapon. I'm going to control again the weapon, and of course from here it's a little bit more MMA, Kala. I'm going to do damage with the elbows, back fist. It's going to be a very hard time for him. He still hasn't racked the weapon, so the weapon is still not active. Of course, if I had a knife, I could go for the knife, but we're saying I don't have a cold weapon. So again, elbows here, head butts, biting. It's going to be very uncomfortable. He still hasn't racked the pistol, so this pistol is useless. Remember, it doesn't work. It doesn't work with Yeah, it's more complicated. There are more complex scenarios, but again, basic jiu-jitsu, you can use it there. In actual fact, for law enforcement, you use modified jiu-jitsu. Gracie, survival tactics, GST is one such example. It works beautifully.
Well, guys, I think that's going to be the end of this video. I'd just like to thank Dewet for actually taking time out of his day to do this with me. If you guys would like to see more of this, like I'm willing to explore more of it myself, just leave a comment down below. Alright, also give a like and subscribe, and then until next time, take care.